guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little different to what I usually post. I've been working on this Highland Cow. This is a baby Highland Cow and is super adorable. I've been asked a lot to show how I am going about doing all this fur texture, so I thought I would just pop my camera on and just film directly what I'm doing so you can see exactly how I am replicating all his fur. It's sort of swept over one eye, and it's taken me many hours to get all this texture. So what I'm doing, I'm putting down my base layers first and sort of getting all the colours down, and then I'm sort of picking out highlights and then darkening little shadows in between, as well as using my slice tool. So I thought I'd just show you exactly what I'm doing in real time. So it's going to be quite a lengthy video because I'm going to work on this section and sort of this section here. So I hope you all enjoy. I'm going to sort of, I'll explain as I'm going. So I'm just going to tidy up my page. I've got a few little bits of pencil dust on here. So I'm starting off with my buff titanium luminance pencil as my base layer. So I'm just putting this down. So I'm not paying too much attention to any details when I'm putting down base layers. I'm literally just like filling areas of the page. So the section that I'll be working on, I'll put down my base layer of buff titanium, and then I'll keep working on top of that section then. And I don't tend to have my pencils very sharp when I'm doing my base layers. This is as blunt as it's got, so I am going to sharpen it. For my luminance pencils, I like to use this KUM sharpener. So I'm just going to sharpen them up. So I'm not sure if you can see on camera any of the colour that is being put down at the moment, but it is there. It's just very light. I just want to make sure I got nice even coverage. So like I say, I'm not looking at the really tiny details yet. I'm sort of looking at all the different colours I can see and like blocking them in, so just drawing shapes. So I'm going to go in, that was the buff titanium, and now I'm going to use another luminance pencil. This is the burnt ochre 10%, which has sort of got like an orangey peach kind of hue to it. So I'm just lightly using this in sections now, to where I can see some of the pinks and peachy colours in the fur. So I've really taken my time so far with this piece. I know this section here alone yesterday that I worked on took me about 2 to 3 hours. I think it's taken me a lot longer because I haven't worked on fur like this before, this kind of fur texture. So I'm trying to like figure out what techniques to use and what process is best, and sort of figuring it out as I go along. So I'm making sure I'm being really careful and I don't rush. So next I'm going to go in with my nugget pencil. When I can find it, there he is. So this is like a very greyish brown sort of colour. I'm just going to pick out some of the mid-tones now. And I'm really, really lightly using this, like sort of just brushing it on almost. There's no pressure at all. I'm holding the pencil very loose and just want to like subtly get some of this brown colour in. It's like almost a sandy colour in the fur. So I'm sort of mixing this nugget with the ochres and the buff titanium. And I'm not trying to get every exact fur strand the same in my reference photo, because as we call it, a reference photo, so it's just our point of reference to see how we should draw it and how it should sort of look, like guidelines. So I'm not making sure I get every strand exactly the same, because if we were to look at this cow in the field, he's not looking exactly like this right now, is he? You know, his fur is going to change direction, if you get what I mean. So I'm just sort of looking at the mid-tones in between the bits of fur and sort of colouring in between those strands. Rather than drawing the strands themselves, I'm sort of making them appear by adding in shadows and mid-tones. And this bit I've already sort of shaded in. I know this is a very dark area. I'm just going to shade a bit over just to make that stand out a bit more and sharpen my pencil. So I'm sort of also focusing on the different clumps of fur. So there's lots of different sections of the fur. Like we had this long section swooping over here, and then we had this section swooping up there, and this one going across. And now there's one little section here, and then there's the top section here. So when you've got a lot of fur, like in this Highland cow, it's much easier to sort of break it up into sections rather than try and focus it on the whole thing at once. I find it very overwhelming to try and do it all at once. It was the same when I was drawing the spaniel years. It was much easier if I broke it up into sections, so I worked on different shapes first. So as well as adding in the mid-sections with this nugget, I'm sort of still mapping out where sections start and end. So there's like a darker section here where it's in shadow of this section of fur sort of overlapping. So I'm just marking that in very lightly with my nugget pencil. And I'm going to continue using this pencil for a while now, just marking in areas and darkening some of the tones. I'm still keeping an eye on fur direction as well, because there's lots of bits sort of, it flows over nicely and then it goes messy at the end, where it's sort of like all flicking outwards. So again, I'm going back over parts I've already done, starting to darken them up. So as you hear me say in my previous videos, I don't like to start out too dark too soon. It's always easier to go back and darken than it is to go back and lighten. So I sort of map out areas first, and then I'll go in and darken if I'm happy with how it looks. It's all about careful planning as well. I don't tend to have a plan when I start the drawing. I sort of plan as I go along with each section. I'm going to use a cold grey now. This is a cold grey 2. And I'm just going to add it in this area here, where it's sort of a little bit of a shadow, but it's not the deep shadows. It's only sort of a very subtle shadow. I think I'm going to need to use a darker pencil then. I'm going to use a warm grey now. I'm going to use warm grey 5. Just to go in between, to sharpen them up. Just go in between some of the strands to create deeper shadows. So when I'm making something darker as well, I don't tend to press hard. Instead, I'll sort of shade it and then I'll go over again with the same pressure, so that we're not pressing down the truth of the paper, and we can still add layers on top afterwards. So I'm using this very, very lightly, just to subtly add some of that colour on. Now I'm going to go in with a lighter warm grey, so warm grey 3, just to blend these shadows out a bit. And I'm also going to use it to darken some areas as well now, and give a little more depth to the fur. I'm going to go back to my buff titanium. I'm just going to work on this little section. So I'm always sort of going back and forth, neatening up a few areas or darkening a few areas. I'll go back with my nugget now. I'm just going to deepen this shadow here, where this sort of chunk of fur is coming out from underneath and then hitting the light. And it needs to be a lot darker, so I'm going to use my burnt umber. Actually, I've been using the walnut brown in the shadows. I'm just going to sharpen it. And just slowly start darkening the shadow here. Just darken up a few more areas. And then go back with my nugget. Just to blend it a bit. So you can see I'm not pressing hard at all. I'm sort of very lightly shading over the top. You can see I just repeat the process over and over as I'm building up all the colours and the shadows. Just going to use a warm grey 1 now, just to sort of tone down this area and add a bit of shadowing. And this line by yin is now quite harsh compared to this area, so I'm going to use my warm grey 3 just to blend it into that section so it looks a bit softer. And then we need to darken this shadow under here where this section of fur is sort of overlapping. So you want to bring it forward a little more. So to bring it forward, we need to add a bit of depth and a bit of shadow underneath. So I'm going to use a Pablo Cocoa to do this. Now I want to make this area a little more of an orange tone, so I want to use my Bistra pencil for that. So I'm just going to lightly brush over it. I only want a very subtle sort of yellowy orange kind of tone. And then I'm going to use it in this area here and try and darken that a bit more. And I'm going to use it in the dark areas too, just to add a bit of colour to it. So I'm going to sharpen him up. In this area here, there's lots of thin strands. So instead of drawing the thin strands, I'm going to draw in between them. I'm going to use my Bistra to add in all the little shadows underneath. So I'm going to start off very, very lightly, so you can only just about see. And then once I've gotten them in, I will darken them. It does need to be thicker, so I'm going to use my buff titanium just to add a bit more. And then the nugget as well, just to add the shadow underneath. I'm not sure how well it shows up on camera, but I will upload a photo. I'll pop a photo at the end of the video so you can see exactly what I've been doing, if you can't quite see well enough on camera. So now I'm going to go and darken this shadow area again with my walnut brown, and now I'm starting to press a little hard because I really want to sort of blend those colours in and get it nice and rich and dark. then also just flick it in to that lighter area, and then a few darker shadows. And I'm going to use a warm grey 3 just to darken this area a little bit. Just like so. And then once I've darkened this area, I just want to add in a few little highlights and a few sort of like wispy bits of fur. So I'm going to go in with my slice tool. I think I'm going to use the penknife first, and then maybe the precision tool. So I'm just going to follow my reference a moment. So it's sort of like wavy. I don't want to do straight lines. Like sort of flicking up here. And I'm going to do the same up here as well. Then I'm going to use my warm grey 1, make it really sharp, and just go over those lines. And now I'm going to work on the texture more here. So I'm going to use my cocoa pencil. I'm just going to, again, same with all the other parts, work in between and sort of add in shadows. And I'm also going to go in between where I've added in those highlights and just darken in between so they really pop and stand out. And I'm going to use a bit of Bistro now, just to add a bit more colour here. And then I'm going to work on this shadow now. So my deepest areas I'm using my walnut brown. And it sort of comes out into like a sandy pink colour. And it comes out here. So I think I'm going to use my light flesh Polychromos. I don't want it to be too pink, so I think I might put down some warm grey one first as a base layer. You can see I'm only doing it very, very lightly. And I think I'm going to use some ivory as well. Just give it more of a yellowy peach colour. I'm also going to add it into some of the Faber here, because there's a little more yellow. I'm also going to add in some up here so I can work on this section too. I'm just going to focus on this section for a moment actually. I tend to change my mind a lot when I'm working, and I change sections to what I think will make it easiest for us. So I'm just erasing some of my graphite lines that I can see still showing through. And then back in with my warm grey. I'm going to use only a very subtle amount of pink, so I'm just going to like shade over with no pressure at all, just on a very, very subtle pinky colour by here. And then go in with my nugget very, very lightly as well. I'm sort of going to follow this process all the way down here, because it's the same sort of fluffy, fuzzy fur texture. And it's almost out of focus of the camera as well. I'm just going to blend that together now with the warm grey one again. going to sharpen it. And now I'm just going to erase some of my graphic lines here, just so I can barely see them. I can see, I know I need a shadow here, so I'm just going to lightly mark in with my nugget pencil there. And then go back with my warm grey. So when I get to the end, I like to just sort of flick out. I don't want harsh edges on this cow. I want it to sort of fade out into the background with all those little flicks of fur. So I'm just flicking it around, following the direction that I can see. And again, I can see I got shadow coming up here. So I just want to make sure I add that in. So I think I've said before in my videos, my base layers are quite important for mapping out sections. I don't focus much on the detail, but more of my tones and where things are going to go, where the lightest parts and the darkest parts are. Sharpening my warm grey up again. I'm going to go back with the buff titanium because it goes a lot more yellow up in this section. I'm using the buff titanium to sort of blend these areas together. It's very light here, but I'm going to keep working on top. I think I'm going to go in with the Cocoa Pablo pencil now. Just darken some of the areas and add in a little more texture. So I'm sort of using like very subtly wavy lines, not like drawing straight lines, they're not very curvy, so sort of letting my pencil go a bit loose and random to get this texture in. I will be adding lighter areas into this soon as well, because we've got areas of here sort of overlapping and the end around this area. And to get that, I'll be using my mono eraser, but we'll get to that in a moment. Once I've added in enough colour down. So I want more of a sandy colour here, so I'm going to use my nugget again, and possibly a bit of the bistre as well. Again, I'm just working like very, very loosely. I'm not controlled at all. So I'll just let my pencil make random textures in the fur. And then I'll tidy it up once I've got enough of the colour down. Then once I've done sort of random textures, where I can see is like naturally left lighter bits, I'm now going to use a darker pencil. I think I'm going to use one I haven't used yet. This is a Pablos brownish beige, I think it is. Yeah. Just going to sharpen it nice. And then I'm going to go in between the lighter areas. And it sort of like naturally creates that fuzzy fur texture then. I'm going to add a little bit more pink. And use my Polychromos Flesh Pink. So again, it is a lot of going back and forth and just randomly brushing that over just to add a few subtle pink tones in there. And I'm going to focus on this area. And once I've done this area, I'm going to lighten up some parts of here so it's sort of overlapping into the dark parts. So I'm going to use warm grey. Warm grey 3 first, just to start adding in some darker tones. And then I'll move darker then. So again, slowly building it up as we go. So I'm doing some of the shadows thick, some of them thin, all sort of random, but sort of sticking closely to my reference as well. So I'm looking where I can see thicker parts and thinner parts of shadows. I'm just trying to find these little flicks here. I think I'm going to start using the mono eraser now. So this is my little Tombow mono eraser. I think I've shown it before in a few of my videos. So it's just like a mechanical pencil, but it's an eraser. So I like using this. Sometimes I use it to erase my graphite lines, but then I also like to use it for highlights when I need it to just be like a soft, subtle highlight, and just remove some pigment. And I don't use any pressure. I sort of just go back and forth until I've got enough of the pigment off. And I've loved using this. It's been really helpful in this portrait, as well as a slice tool. I'm not sure how I'd have created the texture without these two tools. So it's just helping to lighten some areas very softly and subtly. So there's lots of like soft subtle highlights, so I use the mono eraser, and then if I want like sharp thin lines, I'm going to use the slice tool. So when I've been drawing this fit, I've been going back and forth to adding colour, adding the shadows, and then I'll go in and add a bit of texture. And then I'll go back and add in shadows and colours, and then some highlights and texture. There's a lot of going back and forth. And what I like to do as well, once I've brushed off some of the pencil dust, instead of continuing to brush off my page, I'll just use my putty rubber to pick up the bits so that I don't cause any smudges. Now I've added in some highlights, I go back in and darken my shadows so those highlights then stand out a little more. So I'm just using my cocoa pencil and going in between all the lighter parts and darkening them up. Well, not darkening the lighter parts, darkening the shadows in between the lighter parts. And I do this several times, that's why this fur is taking me so long. Now I'm going to use a different pencil I haven't used yet. This is the brownish orange, just to get a little bit of like a dark peachy kind of colour going down. So I'm just putting it down very lightly in a few areas. I think I'm also going to use it in this shadow area here. The fur gets very dark when it comes down here and sort of turns into like a very dark pinkish orange. So this is where I get carried away. I see a little bit of shadow, I go to start adding it in and like, oh, I haven't finished this area, I need to go back to that. I think I'm going to add some Bistra up here now. It's looking a bit too light. I think I'm going to go back in with the cocoa again and keep darkening these areas up. So you can see it's starting to look a lot more textured now, and it's taken almost an hour, I think, to sort of just build up this section. So it does take a very long time creating fur texture like this. I might get better and quicker at it once I'm sort of used to creating texture like this. I'm very used to doing like sleek horse fur or dog fur. Never have I done very long, fuzzy, fluffy cow hair before, but it's lovely to work on something new and learn some new skills. And I'm definitely going to be drawing more cows in the future. They're really fun to draw, and I'm a big lover of cows to begin with, so I was excited when I was asked to draw this little baby Highland cow. And I will be making prints of him to purchase on my store, as well as greetings cards. And I am thinking of bringing back my mugs So I know they were very popular before. And I think it'd be adorable to have a little baby Highland Cow mug. So let me know what you all think in the comments if you would be interested in something like that. I've had several people asking me for prints already of this little guy, so I'll definitely be doing prints. So I think I'm going to leave him there for now because this video is going to be very long, and I don't want it to be too long. I might do some time lapses of him, possibly. I'm not quite sure yet. What do you all think? Would you like to see some time lapses so you don't have to watch like an hour-long video to see him come to life? And what other videos would you like to see in the future from me? So I hope you all enjoyed watching how I create the fur texture on this little Highland Cow. I hope you've learned something. I know it was a very long, lengthy video, very different compared to my other ones, but I thought I'd just try something new out, and lots of you asked to see how I create the fur texture, so this is how I do it. I hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you think. Give me a like if you enjoyed. I'm sort of rambling now because I said I wouldn't edit this video, and so I'm trying to think of everything I say at the end. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, it helps my channel out a lot, and I will see you all in my next video. I'll pop a photo up at the end of this video so you can see what I have done so far. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye!